Welcome to the SketchUp Academy Toolbox Series. Today's tools are the ARC tools. There are 4 of them that you can choose from. So we'll go through all 4 of those and show you how they work and what their little additional attributes are so you can understand what best way to use what ARC. As with the other videos, I want to make sure you have the large tool set open. So if you right click on any toolbar, you'll get a list of the toolbars that are available to you. And in here is the large tool set. So make sure that's checked. As you can see, this one is not. So check it and you'll get this tool set. The reason for giving you this is these are pretty much all the tools you'll use in SketchUp. So I won't get more repetitious, as I've said this numerous times already in this series. This, by the way, is part 4, the ARC tool. The basic SketchUp arc is the 2-point arc. It actually kind of has 3 points, but we'll say they call it the 2-point arc, but I'll show you what that means. So click on that and come out on the screen and click the first point, let go, drag out, and probably good to drag this out on axes if you can. It makes life a lot easier. Still the same idea here. You want to draw coplanar and on axes if you possibly can. So drag it out. You can see the line turns green, or it will turn red, or it'll turn blue. We'll do green. Click the second point, and then just pull the mouse out. You let go of the mouse button when you do this, and just pull it out. And you'll see down in the VCB it says bulge. And what that is, we'll go ahead and click that last point. A bulge, I'm going to draw a line across the base of this. The bulge is the distance from the apex to the chord. That right there. That's the bulge. So that is the distance of the bulge. I'll erase this and go back to the beginning here for a second. So I can type A for arc. That's the keyboard shortcut for this basic arc. This is the arc that SketchUp has always had. The other 3 have been added over time. Click point 1, pull out, click point 2, and then just move the mouse, pull it out. You can go either direction here. If you tap the up arrow key, you can go vertically pretty easily. So those up arrow keys that lock in basically the axes can be used here in this case. So right for red. In this case, it's the only direction we're going to get, or blue, vertical. So drag that out for the bulge and set it. At this point, you can control several aspects of this arc. You can control the size of that bulge. Right now it says 5'5 3/4". I could type in 6 feet here and hit enter. That will change that distance. So right now I have a 6-foot bulge. If I type in 8 feet, I get an 8-foot bulge. 2 feet. So it controls the radius essentially. But I can also control the radius independently from the bulge. So if I typed in, for example, 4-foot R, and hopefully this will, let's make this bigger, 24-foot R, that's a 24-foot radius. If I typed in 12-foot R, hopefully this will work, that's a 12-foot radius. So you have to add the R at the end. If you want to change the bulge, you just type in 2 feet. That's not going to do anything for me. Let's go 4 feet. Okay, so I've now controlled the bulge and or the radius. I haven't done anything else first. This is imperative that you understand that this is a cycle. So you have to do these things right after you draw the arc. You can also change the number of sides. If you recall in a circle, arcs and any kind of curve shapes actually faceted. If I type in, say, 5S, that becomes a 5-sided arc. So the higher the number, the smoother that's going to be. 24S gets a pretty decent smooth arc. You can go as high or as low as you want. As low as 3, I think, probably. If I do 2, I don't know what's going to happen. Yeah, it'll do it. It'll do 2. So let's put in 20S. So now what I've done is I've controlled the radius, I've controlled the number of sides, and I've controlled the bulge just by drawing this one arc. Now, what would the number of sides do for you? Much like a circle, you can draw other shapes pretty easily. So let's say I wanted to do like a gambrel roof, like a barn roof. If I take the arc tool and go point A, point B, and drag this up to here, to the top, and type in 4S, I basically get a gambrel roof shape. I'll erase the extraneous information here, and I can push-pull this out and get a gambrel roof. Now the only thing missing are these lines, which you'd have to just draw in with the line tool. Connect all that together. And let's say we want to create a gable or an end here, if you will. I'll go ahead and pick all these points and use the offset tool, which is F. Pull this out. I'll just make that 4 inches. Let's see. Oh, missed one. Got to get this one over here. And I can use the push-pull tool on that to add a little bit of an eave. So with an arc, you can create multifaceted shapes. You can do this obviously with the circle tool as well. But you can see you can get some pretty interesting shapes pretty quick. I don't have to understand what all these angles are when I've drawn this. I just say I want 4-sided. So all these angles here, inside angles, are going to be the same radius, or the same angle. So that's the basic arc tool. That's a 2-point arc. The next one is what they call just arc, and this draws an arc from a center point and 2 points. So the first point you're going to pick is going to be the center point of the radius. You're going to get that compass gizmo there. Click at some point. I pick the origin just for ease of drawing here. And I'll drag this out on the green. Click. And what's going to happen now is I'm going to be pulling this arc around that radius point. I can control, if you look in the VCB down here, it now says angle. So I can pull that around to a specific angle. So essentially an included angle. If I were to draw lines from this center point to each end of this arc, I would be able to measure that angle. I'm going to set it, it ticks into 90, should tick into 120, 140, 130, etc. I'll set it over here and say 45. So that arc includes a 45-degree angle inside of it. So if I were to draw these 2 lines, that angle right there is 45 degrees. So if it's a value to you to know how long that, or what this included angle is in that arc, you can control that. Let's look at it one more time. I can drag this out wherever I like, set it at 130, let's say. I can also change this and type in 45 and align that angle to that arc, say 63. So again, if you haven't changed anything, or you haven't drawn anything else first, you can change this arc. I can put in 4 sides, 4S, and change the number of sides in that. The only thing you can change here is the number of sides and the angle that's inside that. So 12S, okay? So that's one arc. What can you do with that arc? One of the things you can do is draw door swings, which is kind of where this comes from. I'll just drag this out. It's going to be a huge door. We'll make it 15 feet so you can see it. And I'll come over here, pretend this is a wall. We'll put 15 feet over here. So with this arc tool, this guy. And you can see it kind of looks like a door swing if you look at the icon. Drag it out, pull this around. So I can draw a door swing. I can take that out. So that's an easy way to draw a door swing in SketchUp. I typically do it that way. If I were to do a wall, let's just draw a rectangle here. And we'll make that rectangle 6 by, say, 20 feet. It's kind of tiny compared to what I was just drawing, but let's call that a wall. And we'll make this 8 foot tall. With the rectangle tool, I can draw a doorway here. And we'll make this 3 feet, comma, 7 feet. And I get my door size. If we push-pull this through, this is where I can draw my door. So that's a 3 foot wide door. Let's put it over here. Draw the door itself, 3 feet, and then use this arc tool. Come over on the door swing, the hinge side, if you will, and draw that arc for the door. So that's the best use for that. I will draw my doors in SketchUp on the floor, but typically you may want to not have those show at times. So you might want to put this on a separate layer that you can turn off when you don't want those door swings showing. For example, in a perspective view, but in a plan view, let's look at this from the top and go to parallel projection, camera, parallel projection. There's your door swing. So this is good for plans. Typically, I will make a layer, go over here to layers, add a layer called doors, or door swings. Maybe we'll make it door swings, and set that door itself on that layer. In the layer toolbar here, you can just pick door swings and set that off over there. So now that door is on door swings. If I go to layers here, I can turn that off. So we'll get into how you can control this better with scenes. There is a video on my YouTube channel and on my website, sketchupacademy.com, that goes through how to use scenes to control a lot of this. Okay, so if you're in perspective, you may not want that to show. We'll put this back in perspective view. You may not want it to show, but if you're in plan, you may want that door swing to show. Where's my layers? There it is. Now this doesn't look much like a door, a plan, but we'll show you how to make that a plan eventually here using the section tool. Okay, so that's a good use for that particular arc. Get rid of it here. The next arc is one that's 3-point. It draws an arc through 3 points on the arc circumference. So that's the circle itself. Usually the best way to look at this, I'll draw a couple of rectangles here. I typically will pick a couple of points. I'm trying to get an arc through those 2 points. I can do that with this particular type of arc. Okay. Now when you've done that, you've already set the radius. So there's really no controlling that radius here. I can change the number of sides, I believe, and smooth that out. Oh, that didn't work too well. Let me try it again. I'm guessing at this. I haven't tried this before, so we'll see. Yeah. As long as you do it right after you've drawn the arc, you can change the number of sides. So that was 5S, this 20S to smooth it out. 8S, get a little more rugged. Depends on how much detail you need. That is a polyline, so you can mess with that. The other thing with arcs, I'm using the line tool here. You see if I come and touch one of the vertices in this arc, it will find the center for me over here. So now I can draw these radial lines if I like. Okay. So all you've got to do with the line tool, any tool really, is set it somewhere on that arc, and it will find the endpoints and it will find the center point out here. Center point is a blue dot, and you can see it says center. So I can click on that point and draw through these vertices. Okay. So that, I think they call that the 3-point arc. Yep. The last one is a pie. It's very similar to this door swing arc, I'm going to call it. It basically creates a face for you inside of that arc. So again, set the radius, center point, drag out. I'm not dragging, actually I'm pulling out. I'm not holding down any mouse button keys and just setting that. And what that does is it closes that form for you. So that can be push-pulled if you like. I don't use that one very much, but if you have a need to draw that kind of shape, that's a quick way to do it. Arcs can also tag on to one another. So if we use the basic arc, create that first arc, point A, point B, and drag this out. And I'll add some more sides here. We'll make this 18S. And I'm just picking numbers out in space. If you click on the endpoint of that arc with the arc tool again, what's going to happen is it comes out with now a blue arc. And if you can see that little flag, it says tangent at vertex. That means over here. So this arc that we're drawing will be tangent with that first arc. And just click. Drag out, click twice. Okay, so these are tangent. At any point in time, let's just go here and draw a line so you can see that I can have done something else. I can come and do that again at any time. So you can go back to an arc at any time, and you can move this wherever you like. It's going to be tangent, just depending on where you set that. Just watch for that little flag, and you'll know your tangent. Make sure it's, I don't know, cyan color, I guess it is. So first point, drag out or pull out, no mouse button pushed, and move this around. As long as that stays blue, your tangent, click to set that, and then click to accept. If I connect these 2 points together with a line, I will get a face, and I can push-pull that. Now, just like the circle tool when we were doing a push-pull, these do have hidden geometry in them. So if you go to View, Hidden Geometry, that's what you really have. These are all faces that have been created by that arc tool. One of the little things I'll tell you here is that when you're creating these arcs, you may want to be careful with how many sides you put on them. You can see here we've created quite a few faces. That can be detrimental in terms of SketchUp being efficient. You know, you can bog it down by having too much geometry. But those are all individual faces. With the push-pull tool, just like with the circle, I can pull these out, I can push them in. Okay, so you have a lot of opportunity here if you turn hidden geometry on. That line right there is the joint between those two arcs. If you don't like that, you can use the eraser tool to basically turn that into hidden geometry. Because if I turn hidden geometry off in the view menu, that line's still there. If you use the eraser tool, which is E, and hold down Control and swipe across that, I can make that go away. Basically what I'm doing is turning it into hidden geometry. What happens when I do that, there's still a line in there, that's why that did what I wanted to do. It basically turns that all into one big face. So if those lines bother you, eraser tool, hold down Control and swipe across or touch it, whichever way you want to do. That line, that's a corner essentially. You could do that. It does make a little bit of a funny corner there when you do that. It's really shouldn't, probably don't want to do that. Okay, so hidden geometry on. You'll get all the faces showing. You can push-pull them all you like. So you can start creating some rather interesting shapes with this kind of thing. If you need to draw gears, and that'd be kind of a funky gear, but you get the idea. Okay, so you can create arcs that are tangent to one another. It only really works fairly well with the basic arc tool. But just go grab the other one, make sure it turns blue, and you'll get a tangent arc. Double click at the end. One to set the endpoint, one to accept, and you're all set. Anytime at all, you can go back to another arc and do that. So you don't have to do that consecutively at all. Let's look at one other use for arcs. Well, we'll look at two other uses. Let's draw a big old rectangle here. Let's say I want to round off the corners of this rectangle, and I want it to be a perfect quarter round circle or curve here, if you will. I can use the arc tool again and pick a point on one edge, the distance out that I want this radius to be, and I'll show you how you can control that here in a minute. Pick on one edge, kind of drag, just don't drag it, just move it down to that endpoint, and then drag it up this other edge. And you can see it's blue. That means it's tangent to the edge. But if I pull it all the way till it's purple, that's a perfect quarter round circle. Click twice and it will carve off the extra geometry. Okay, so anywhere you want, you can do that. Just drag it down the other edge, and you can get a perfect radius on that corner. I'm going to back up here. If you want to set that radius specifically, you really only need to do one side of this. Let's see how long this is. Okay, that's a mile long, so it's not going to matter. If you use the tape measure tool, T, which is this guy down here, we can set some guidelines. So T for tape measure, and just click on one edge and just let go and move the mouse out. And we can move this out whatever distance we want. So this is a guideline that we're creating here. SketchUp calls them guides. You might call them construction lines. There's a lot of terminology for that. Let's set this at 100 feet. And using that arc tool, if I use that point now, that 100-foot point, click and drag out along this edge, and wait for it to turn magenta, click and click again. This now, let's go to entity info, is a 100-foot radius exactly. So clicking on anything in SketchUp and then right click on it. So if I right click on this and pick entity info, it's going to be the very top item in any context menu that opens up for you when you right click. So you can call it right click, you can call it context click, a lot of terms for it, but all these menus are based on what you clicked on. So I click on entity info, that will always be there. You can see it says I have a radius of 100 feet. So I've set that by only setting one edge. You can also do that non-equivalent, if you will. I'll pick on one point, drag out, and click here. What's happened when I've done that, that's not equal distance, right? But this side, that first point, is tangent. The second point is not. Here you have to erase the extra geometry. So if you want to create an arc, for example, through a couple particular points, and I'll use guides to do that, I can do that easily with that arc tool. Okay. Last thing for arcs, and we'll be done with this tool, is if you want to draw, say, arched openings in your building someplace. Let's just draw a little rectangle out here and pull this up. and we'll draw a rectangular opening. But say you'd rather that had an arc on it. Using that 2-point arc, we pick the first 2 points and then just drag this up. You can drag this up and control that the bulge here, in this case, that distance vertically. We'll type in 35 feet. This is really big, so the numbers may not make perfect sense, but I can pull that through and have my tunnel, if you will. At any point in time, you can do that on any window opening. I'll push that in. Even though I've pushed it in already, I can still do that. One of the things I like to do is control this height, which you can do with the bulge, or you can draw a line up, make it, let's say, 20 feet here in this case. Use the arc tool, go 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we'll do that again. First point, second point, the other corner of the window, and just pull it up and click on that third point. So I've controlled the bulge here in this case. Oop, didn't mean to do that. I wanted to erase the line. So I can pull, oh, come on. For some reason it didn't cut that in there. There we go. If you have problems sometimes like that, just try it again. So if I wanted to make that piece something of that nature, I can do that. Say I wanted to do an arched header here. I can use the offset tool. So pick that line, that arc, use the offset tool and drag that up. And I can set this whatever I want. Connect the dots. It just filled on me. It filled in on me because I made that line. Okay. Again, trace over it again if you can't get it. Pull this out a little bit. Get your arched header. Okay, so arcs can do a lot of things for you. You can draw them any direction you like. You can use them to change the shape of something. Let's use the arc tool here to get that tangent corner. I'll pull this off. Okay, so be inventive, spend some time with that, but arcs will create a lot of nice shapes for you. If you combine it with the offset tool, you can start getting this sort of thing. I think that's all I have for the arc tool. Thanks for coming by. This is the Toolbox series again. Those were the arc tools.